Hey folks, Matt Easton here, Scholar Gladiator, and I'm getting really sick of something. Why do so many computer games, video games, have weapons like this, or like this Zweihander here, or even spears, even lances? Why do they have them as a weapon in your inventory, and when you put that weapon away and pull out your arming sword or dagger or whatever your other weapon is, these get put on the back, magically. They magically hover there on the back of your player. And I know this has been spoken about on loads of channels and in loads of videos, but it's really driving me crazy. And, you know, with things like Mordhau and Bannerlord, I do play Bannerlord, I'm not very good at it at the moment, but with games like this that are kind of striving towards a little bit more realism, a little bit more realistic sense of real combat, and in some cases, Bannerlord arguably may be the case, and equally with Mordhau, trying to make the armour and equipment look more realistic. You know, the swords, the axes, the armour actually look more like historical examples. Why are we still in an age, in the year 2020, where these kinds of weapons magically just go mounted onto your back, and then when you need them again, they're back in your hands? Now, I know that Shad has done a video looking at the possibility of wearing large two-handed swords on your back, and yes, as an outlier, it might be possible. But you know, many things are possible, but that doesn't mean that they were done. It doesn't mean that they're sensible. It doesn't mean that they're practical. Okay, and the simple fact is, a sword like this, historically, how was it carried? It was carried in the hands. If the person, like a Landsknecht, for example, had one of these, and the Landsknecht had a Katzbalger backup sword, and maybe a dagger as well, some sort of Bannerlord or something like that, then those would be his backup weapons. And what would he do when this weapon was put down or cast aside? Or indeed, if someone is using as their primary weapon something like this spear, this winged spear, or indeed if they were a horseman using a lance, what happens when you put down your primary weapon, your big long pole weapon? When you put that down, what happens to it? Well, you put it down. I don't understand why that can't be a thing in video games, and it would be fun. It would be an extra gaming element. So say, for example, you're playing Bannerlord, and you've got a spear and a shield, and you've got a sword as a backup, maybe a dagger as well. You can wear the sword and the dagger. That's the real advantage of swords and daggers, incidentally. As I've mentioned in so many videos, probably hundreds of videos now, one-on-one, generally speaking, the spear has the advantage. Shields can alter that a bit, armour can alter that a bit, but generally speaking, one-on-one, the spear has the advantage over the sword. The advantage of the sword is it's a sidearm. You can wear it at your side. You can't wear a spear at your side. And you can't fight in all environments with a spear either. You can't fight in an enclosed small room, or, you know, going into a building, clearing out buildings, this kind of stuff. There are many environments where the short weapon is the practical one and the practical choice. But if this is your primary weapon and you put it down, in reality, you maybe put it down on the ground. Maybe you, I don't know, this is kind of not very good etiquette with people who've got nice sharp edges. You just jam the thing into the ground. Maybe you throw it at an enemy before you draw your secondary weapon, whatever. But you need to do something with it, and those things are not complicated. They're not complex. You could easily model them into a game. If you're playing Bannerlord and your primary weapon is a spear, why not have the player actually just go, wow, mind-blowing, I put the spear down. And then when you need the spear again, instead of having it weirdly hovering across your back, which I've got to say, especially when you're playing these sort of games that are, at least for many of us, we're playing in third person. I know you can play in first person as well, but if you're playing in third person, it's really annoying to look at when you're going around on horseback using a sword and you've got a lance like sticking on your back. It looks stupid, it looks ridiculous. It would be quite fun, I think, if you did decide to put your lance down. Say, for example, you're on horseback, you get into close combat, the lance isn't very good in close combat, so you drop the lance or stick it in the ground, whichever you prefer. And you can stick the back end, incidentally, and you don't have to stick the pointy front end in. And then you pull out your sword, you fight that guy, boom, you kill that opponent. Oh, I want my lance back now. So what do you have to do? Well, that's fun. You put your sword away. That's already modelled in the game. You go over to where the spear is. Now, this is the really mind-bogglingly revolutionary part. Okay, so game designers, pay close attention to this bit. Watch me. I'm someone who owns a spear. I've just been using my sword. I want to get my spear back. Watch this. I've got my spear back, I picked it up. Why can't that be modelled into games? I think that'd be fantastic. You pick up weapons anyway, especially in Bannerlord, you know, you think, oh, I quite fancy that sword over there because I didn't have enough credits, whatever, to spawn as a decent as a decent soldier. But I've seen that a dead person over there has got a really good sword, so let's ditch this stick that I've got and I'll go and get that sword. You've already modelled into the game picking up weapons, so why not have, when your primary weapon has to be put down, actually put it down? You can't wear spears and great swords and axes and lances, and even to some extent things like crossbows and bows. Arguably there are ways of putting bows on your back. You can have certain types of quiver which have a sort of holster built into them, certainly in the Middle East and Asia, but North Africa as well. But in Europe, by and large, a longbowman who's going to go into close combat, they're going to put their longbow down on the ground. There's no practical way to store the longbow on your back, and there's no evidence that that was done as far as I'm aware, and I look at a lot of manuscripts. So why not have, and this would be an interesting element to gameplay, it would feel more realistic, it would feel more genuine, it would look better, because when you put that lance down, it's not now sticking on your back, or two-handed axe or whatever. So it would look better, and it'd be fun. It'd be another element of gameplay that would bring you into the realities of combat, and the fact that your primary weapon, now it makes those secondary weapons, the less good weapons. If you're fighting people with whopping great polearms and stuff, yes, you're at a disadvantage when you've got a sword, unless you've got a shield or armour. It now makes those secondary weapons, those lesser weapons like the dagger and the sword, it makes them worth slightly more, because if your primary weapon is here and you're using this thing, then for some reason, maybe it gets knocked out of your hands, or maybe you're in a very close press of like the shield wall or something, and you have to get a closer in weapon, you drop your axe or whatever you're using, spear, you pull out your sword, that gives added value to that shorter, lesser weapon or your dagger, because it's the thing in your hand. And whilst this might be the better weapon generally in a one-on-one fight, if you can't get to it, well then the weapon in your hand becomes worth, relatively speaking, more. So there we go. Game designers, game players, let's put some pressure on companies that are doing these games like Bannerlord and Mordhau and Kingdom Come Deliverance and all of those out there. When your primary weapon gets put down, don't have it magically disappear into a bag of concealment so you can pull a lance out of your pocket, or one of my big complaints, pikes. Literally like 16-foot long pikes in Warband, in Mountain Blade Warband. Why not have the realism of just, if you want to use your other weapon, you have to put the main weapon down. That's the real simple reality of these sorts of weapons. Let's start modelling this into games and stop having these stupid mass inventories they've got of weapons where you're just pulling things out of a hat like some kind of magician with a rabbit. Thanks for watching. Give us a like and a subscribe. And I'll see you very soon on Scholar Gladiator channel for of course, another excellent video from me, Matt Easton. Take care, see you all soon. I hope you're all coping with the lockdown okay, and I'll see you soon for another video. Cheers, folks! Thanks for watching. We've got extra videos on Patreon. Please give our Facebook a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Cheers, folks.